There are so many judges who are not called, either through connection or whatever process they have engaged to get there, and they are satisfied with answering honorable justice. But we have a few, or we have quite a good number of them who are really judges, and they are doing the job, and we lawyers, we are satisfied. So that takes me back to what we really call corruption. Because if you want to fight corruption, you have to go to the root of what you mean by corruption. The Constitution doesn't talk of corruption. It talks of corrupt practice and abuse of power. Again, the Constitution doesn't define corrupt practice and abuse of power. So it is for us to look at what is corrupt practice and what is abuse of power. Because when we talk of corruption, we're only looking at corruption or those terms in terms of taking bribe, asking for bribe. And so we are chasing after who has taken bribe, who has given bribe. And then you are looking for an independent man.
Mr. Johnson, I wonder if you watched when ex-Governor Amechi was asked to define corruption and the examples that he gave. I just love lawyers. I mean, you're saying corruption and then corrupt practices.
Yes.
So they're different.
Okay, now, I narrowed it down by saying, by corruption, our understanding or common understanding of corruption is you give bribe, you take bribe. But corrupt practice...
It's more than that.
That's what I'm saying. No. I'm saying that is the context in which we approach it. But when you talk of corrupt practice, which is not defined in the Constitution, you now want to find out what is corrupt practice. It's not all about financial corruption. It has to do with dishonesty. Anything that is not honest is a corrupt practice. For example, now let us look at...
May I just paint a scenario?
Yes.
Okay, I am in charge of giving out a job.
Yes.
10 candidates apply, including my son. They take the exam, my son scores highest, and I give him the job. Is that corruption?
Your son?
Yes.
Scored the highest mark?
Yes.
And the criterion...
I wasn't among those marking.
Yes.
Wasn't among those marking.
And the criterion for giving out the job is the person who scored the highest mark. It's very simple. That can't be corruption.
Okay.
That can't be corruption. And the fact that it's your son doesn't preclude you from giving it to him if he scored the highest mark. Corruption will come in, abuse of power will come in, or abuse of office will come in when, although he scored the lowest mark, you gave him the job.
Okay. Now, let's look at how well the Constitution, the Nigerian Constitution, supports this fight against corruption. Let's talk about how well it supports this fight.
We've had series of constitutions from 1922 to 46 to 51 to 60 to 79 to 99. Since 2010 till date, we've had 3 alterations, which is what they normally call amendments. There's yet another process ongoing. In all of these constitutional arrangements, there are copious provisions clearly and expressly prohibiting corruption and corrupt practices. In short, if you look at the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy under Chapter 2 of the Constitution, you would see an insistence of the Constitution prohibiting issues of corruption, and also insisting that the economic activities of the country must be arranged in such a way as to benefit the greater number of the population and not to concentrate it within the hands of a few persons. This same chapter 2, I think section 15 or 16, says expressly that corruption shall be prohibited, you know. Besides that, there are other legislations deriving from the same constitution that are specifically designed to confront corruption and corrupt practices in our country. The ICPC Act, the EFCC Act, even the Nigerian Police Act, where special agencies like the SFU in particular have been created to tackle the issue of corruption. In my view, there are robust legal regimes in the country to deal with the issue of corruption. But what is missing? It is the will to maximize these legal provisions and then confront this cankerworm that is already, as it were, demobilizing us. You see, the trajectory is clear to us. We've seen stages. We've also seen interventions. We've seen that, like he was trying to say, what matters so much is the disposition of those who superintend our affairs, and in those particular times to deal with this challenge. In this country, we have recorded very serious measures, serious efforts to confront corruption. We've also seen moments when it was as though it's accepted, even if it is not clearly stated in the law. But we saw it elevated, almost like a state policy. So if you look objectively and find the variables that were at play at those different times, you will understand what is going on. It is never about the death of laws. It is always about the will. Indeed, the present president rode to power on the crest of the perception of the Nigerian people that he would deal with, amongst other things, corruption. Are we there yet? Certainly not. Are they prospect that we could get there? Yes. But if there are no radical departure from the way we have been doing it in the past, it might be too late. It might be too late because the soul of this country is already mortgaged. It's already caged by corruption.
Now, Mr. Shitu, I would like your comment on something that Justice Esho is reported to have said recently, that the judges handling electoral matters have become billionaires overnight.
I'm sure you know the rating of late Honorable Justice Esho. Easily one of the best jurists.
Yes.
That this country has ever produced in terms of integrity, in terms of knowledge, and in terms of forthrightness. So if Justice Esho deliver that verdict, who am I?
He knows what he's talking about.
Who am I to query such a verdict? I think we'll make progress in this country if we proceed from the standpoint of truth. We should stop denying what is obvious. And perhaps we should also proceed from the premise that what should ideally, in a sane society, what should operate? In a sane society, there should be zero tolerance for corruption, particularly the judiciary. That is a society that is sane. Because when the rest of the society have disputations, they submit it for adjudication to the judiciary. So it is certainly tragic if the same judiciary is found to be engaged in corrupt practices. So that's the perception. The former NBA president says something which has not been denied, and he has not been prosecuted for saying that statement. And that statement is in the public space. That in Nigeria, justice can and is purchasable. That's the NBA president, JB, the former NBA, who said that. Ouch. So the reality is that, and this is not to say that the judiciary as a whole is corrupt. A greater majority of them have integrity.